Benny with an I is a board-certified specialist in pediatric physical therapy at Rocking Ridge Children's Services. She's enjoyed 10 years there serving children and their families. One of her patients, Andy, is almost 5 and has mobility limitations and impaired perception. Benny has been working with Judy, Andy's mom, to ensure Andy's safety and success. Judy has been a dedicated advocate for her son, but she also has 3 other children to care for. At times, she'll jokingly groan.
Ugh, 4 kids under 5. What was I thinking?
Although Ben appreciates the multiple pressures parents face and has great patience with multitasking parents and rambunctious children, the visit with Judy and her 4 children quickly becomes challenging. Amy, the lone daughter, is running around the room. The twins are crying. Judy is distracted as Benny tries to talk with her. Andy is fidgeting and apparently distressed by all the commotion. Judy clearly is harried. Ben tries to put her at ease by saying,
I remember when my kids were young. They can be a handful, can't they?
Yeah, I have too many kids. I should have stopped at 1. I am so overwhelmed. Shh, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
You always find a way. You got Andy through this, his early intervention years, and you've really helped out with his development. Your children are lucky to have you as a mom. Maybe your husband can help out a little more. Anyway, before you know it, Amy will be in school, and that'll take some of the pressure off.
I just don't know anymore. I just don't know how much longer I can do this. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing it. You know, I just get so frustrated. I never laid a hand on a kid in anger, but sometimes I feel like I could really hurt one of them, you know, when it all just seems like too much.
I'm stunned. I get the fact that parents can feel overwhelmed. I mean, I felt that way myself. But what she said is alarming. Is it just Judy's fatigue talking, or is it a real cry for help?
But Benny can't forget about it. Later that morning, she calls Beth, Andy's referring pediatrician. She recounts the conversation with Judy and asks Beth what she thinks.
I mean, this is a postpartum mother we're talking about. Maybe this sort of thing gets said sometimes, and it's an isolated comment, and it isn't necessarily a red flag. Should we be concerned?
well, Judy's never said anything like that to me.
Well, what, if anything, should I do about it?
Well, it's a tough call, I'll grant you that.
But she declines to advise her further. She thanks him for the call and says she has a patient to see.
Hello, Child Protective Services?
It can't be a coincidence that I told you something in confidence this morning that I didn't really mean, and that just hours later, social services was at my door. Now I've got a case file, and I've been told that I can expect observation visits. Thanks a lot. Looks like I'm in the market for a new PT, someone I can trust. Hey, what are you doing?
Hi, class. So you just watched our little skit. So to recap, I played Judy, who was the mother of 4 and very stressed out, and her son, who was 5, was under the care of Dr. Benny, the physical therapist, played by Jess, and Jenny was Beth, the pediatrician, and what's my name? Judy. So Judy threatened a little bit that maybe she could hurt one of her children and divulged that information to the physical therapist, thus causing a bit of an ethical dilemma for the physical therapist. And so together they decided what they should do about it. But unfortunately, Dr. West, or Beth, went and called social services without even saying anything to the physical therapist, Benny, about the ordeal, thus making Judy, the mother, very, very upset because now she has social services knocking at her door. Whether she's at fault or not, that's sort of part of the dilemma. So Jenny, what did Benny do in this skit that was outside of the scope of practice?
Well, diagnosing a mother's mental health is outside of Benny's job responsibilities. But she is so disturbed by Judy's words that she's compelled to call Andy's referring physician, Beth.
And while the PT makes it clear that she is simply seeking the pediatrician's opinion, Her doing so causes a chain of events that deeply upsets Judy and places her under scrutiny. Did Benny act appropriately? How would you have responded to Judy's outburst?
Well, I think in this case, we have to bring up core value 2A, which states that physical therapists shall adhere to the core values of the profession and shall act in the best interests of patients over the interests of the physical therapist. So in this case, the core values that we're going to be focusing on are altruism, compassion, and professional duty. So when it comes to altruism, placing a patient's need above the physical therapist's need is the most important thing. So Benny was put in a situation that required her to make a very difficult decision. She showed altruism by saying something to Beth, even though she knew that exposing this information would potentially cause conflict, which it did. And in this case, the conflict was with Judy, Annie's mom. So next is compassion, which means being an advocate for a patient's needs, and that is exactly what Benny did for her patient Andy. She showed compassion for her patient by calling Beth to ask about Judy's prior behavior. When it comes to professional duty, that means demonstrating beneficence by providing optimal care. Beneficent actions are actions taken to help prevent harm or improve the situation of others. As a PT, Benny's duty is to refrain from causing harm, but she also has an obligation to help her patients. Benny's choice to protect her client, Andy, shows beneficence because it is Benny's duty to put the well-being of his patient first. Staying silent would have put her patient at risk.
And going off of that, we also looked at, in the Code of Ethics, number 3C, which is physical therapists shall make judgments within their scope of practice and level of expertise and shall communicate with, collaborate with, or refer to peers or other healthcare professionals when necessary. So that brings up some questions about the situation. So Benny, the physical therapist, was definitely adhering to this Code of Ethics, acting within her scope of practice to notify another healthcare professional about a dilemma that she was having. So she was within the scope of practice to call Beth, the pediatrician, for advice. But one of the questions that we don't know the answer to is what kind of relationship the physical therapist and the pediatrician had. So it doesn't say anything in our information, but they could be friends or they could not know each other at all. Benny is calling the pediatrician, kind of assuming that she has her trust and that she can confide in her this information, and then unbeknownst to her, she hangs up and just calls social services. So that might be something important for her to think about next time. Just because she's trustworthy and abides by this Code of Ethics doesn't mean that everyone else that is supposed to is also doing the same thing. It sounds like Benny assumed Beth would also adhere to the Code of Ethics in the respect that she would be trustworthy to the information given. And if she wanted social services to know about Judy, I think Benny would have, Beth could have opened up a dialogue to Benny before one of them actually called social services.
Which is why she had a redo.
Exactly, which is why you'll see in a moment she could have possibly handled this better. So by opening up the dialogue, Beth would not only be showing Benny the decency and respect that you should exhibit to a fellow coworker, but she would have also given Benny the opportunity to reach out to Judy herself and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable about what you said to me in the session the other day. Even if you were just feeling stressed at the moment, it worries me and it makes me wonder if I should call social services if something is really going on.
So, yet another option for Benny would have been to not have anyone call social services, but have tried to have a conversation with Judy about how she was feeling to possibly get more answers as to whether or not there may have been abuse in the home. The downside of this approach is that Benny is taking a sticky situation into her own hands and not telling anyone else, which does violate Code 4D. So Code 4D states how it is the responsibility of a physical therapist to report any possible abuse to the appropriate authorities. So this puts Benny at risk for both breaching the code as well as putting Judy's kids in danger if there actually is some abuse going on. I feel most of the situation is Beth's fault. Sorry, Beth. There were so many other ways for this doctor to handle the situation.
To begin with, I believe it is her responsibility as a doctor to take the time to talk with Benny, and when Benny called with such a serious dilemma. If she had to get off the phone to see one of her patients, she should have rescheduled a time for Benny and Beth to speak further. Instead, she rushed Benny off the phone and gave her no insight whatsoever, almost dismissing Benny's call completely. The cherry on top is that after giving almost no opinion or feedback to Benny, she then goes behind Benny's back and calls social services. I don't know the relationship these two have, but I would assume Benny did not expect Beth to call social services, or she would have been more careful with her words and how she approached the situation.
So also we can insert here. This is a little clip of, right? This is for
Right.
What we
Beth,
think.
Beth gets a
Beth gets a redo.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, hi, Benny. I'm good. How are you? Yeah, I know Judy. I saw her just last week. What's up? Huh. Interesting. I mean, I did get the sense that she's been under a lot of stress right now. Huh. But she's never said anything suspicious to me, especially about hitting one of her kids. I do trust your judgment, though, so if you'd want to meet up with me and discuss this sometime. Yeah, there's this new internet cafe on Queens Boulevard. Have you heard of it? Great. I'll see you then.
Thank you so much for meeting with me, Dr. West.
Oh, no problem. Call me Beth.
So great, we got seats at this busy internet
I know, isn't
cafe. Well, Beth, I'm just really concerned about the exchange I had with Judy the other day in my office.
Yeah, so tell me more about that. Now, you said that she hit one of her children?
No, nothing that extreme. It was just the way she said it. I felt like she could really get violent with them.
Wow. No, what did she say exactly?
She said she feels like she's...
But sometimes I feel like I could really hurt one of them. You know, when
She said she feels like she's losing it and could really hurt one of them.
Wow, I've never heard her say anything like that. I honestly didn't know it got to that point. But, you know, this reminds me of Principle 4D in the Code of Ethics. You know which one?
Isn't that the one where the physical therapist is supposed to report suspected cases of abuse involving children to the appropriate authority?
It sure is. I think you know what we need to do. I'll call social services right now.
Wait, Dr. West. Before you call them, Beth, sorry. Do you think we should maybe meet with Judy together and give her the chance to tell us what's really going on? I mean, maybe we can help her.
You mean you don't want to blindside her? All right. I'll see if I can set up a schedule for next week.
That would be great. Thank you.
Hey, ladies. Okay, what is this about? Is my kid okay? Is he sick? What's going on?
No. Andy's fine.
Okay.
It was just something you said last week made Dr. Benny a little concerned.
Oh, is it about my smoking? I'm trying to quit. But you know I'm not doing it in front of the kids.
It's not the smoking. You mentioned that sometimes you get so mad that you could hit one of the kids.
What? I said that? I don't remember saying that at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's why we're here. We just wanted to make sure that you're okay and that your kids are safe.
You know, as doctors, it's our duty to look out for the welfare of our patients. Is everything okay at home?
Well, actually, I've been feeling pretty stressed, and my husband's always traveling for work. He's a truck driver, so.
Well, we thought that might be the case, so here's some information. I brought you some pamphlets. So this is about some affordable daycare and also some hotline numbers you can call if life just seems too much.
And you know, you're not alone, and you can always talk with us if you have any questions, okay?
Thank you guys so much. I never had doctors who cared about me and my kids as much. I really appreciate you being up for me.